this is Kermit the Frog.
Fascinating.
I'm Captain Kirk.
Magic is always there,
Aye, sir.
long as we keep looking for it.
Engage.
What does God need with a starship?
Thank you, love you. Mwah.
I protest. I am not a merry man.
Places, please, and here we go.
Down at Fraggle Rock.
Welcome, Doozers, Gorgs, Vaudouars, and things to episode 138 of the MuppeTrek Podcast. I'm Jarman.
And I'm Steve. We're on a journey across the stars to compare, contrast the creative worlds of Jim Henson and Gene Roddenberry.
What started as reviews of The Muppet Show and Star Trek, the original series, is expanded into outer space.
And this week we have Fraggle Rock episode Capture the Moon and Next Generation episode The Dauphin.
But before that, Steve, I think I want to rock.
I want to rock.
Well, there are all kinds of gems, jewels, and geodes in the world, many of which can be found in Fraggle Rock. And this week's gem is barite.
Oh.
It's usually a white or a pale gem, but this is the main source of where barium comes from in the world, is from barite.
Oh.
Its name comes from ancient Greek, but it can be found all over the place, including Australia, Canada, India, Mexico, Romania, South Africa, and I think was documented as being used like as far as 6000 BC. It's been around. This thing's been around. But what's it used for? Well, nowadays it's used in oil and gas drilling. It somehow in its powdered form helps to like disperse pressure. So the deeper the hole that they're trying to drill, the more barite is like in the slurry mix they're using.
Oh.
And also it's not magnetic, so it doesn't interfere with sensors and instrumentations and stuff.
How do they find this shit out? My question.
We just try everything. Also
so.
Scientists.
Yeah.
Scientists is the answer.
Scientists are fake.
That's right. Well, that's barite, and that rocks.
That rocks.
But what's happening this week in Fraggle Rock? Well, what's up, Doc? Sprocket can't sleep because of the full moon, so Doc uses this opportunity to do research. He reads facts about primitive man trying to capture the moon. Doc finds a record with sleep hypnosis on it, which conks him out, but Sprocket still can't sleep. Sprocket finally drifts off, but now Doc can't get to bed. Oh, man.
Shucks.
Whoa, Doc, you crazy man. Well, what's going down in Fraggle Rock? It's the ceremony of the moon. The procession is coming. They sing a nice song called Shine on Us Now. The world's oldest Fraggle makes an appearance and welcomes everybody to begin the ceremony. Each month, the moon arrives in Fraggle Rock, and one Fraggle is chosen to greet the moon. Gobo steps forward. He sings the sacred moon song, but instead of looking skyward, they all look down into the water, where they're looking at the reflection of the moon in their Fraggle pond from somewhere far above. Meanwhile, in the Gorg's castle, Junior is having a terrible dream because of the full moon. Dreams about Fraggles crawling all over him, and he freaks out. Gobo pitches this idea of capturing the moon, and the Fraggles all immediately get on board. Well, his Fraggle friends do. The greater Fraggle masses don't. Everyone laughs at him, but Wembley sticks with his friend, and they head to the Gorg's garden. Junior goes to get a drink, but he falls into the well, blotting out the moon's reflection above. He freaks out the Fraggles, who think that a monster's face now just lives in the sky where the moon once was. And the Fraggles vow to go and recapture the moon. So they head up, but they take Junior to sleep with the only other song this episode called Sail Away, which the name didn't make a ton of sense compared to the lyrics they sang. Pog Gorg finds Junior stuck in the well. He pulls him free and convinces him that he was just having a nightmare with all the Fraggles crawling all over him. Pog Gorg tells him to count the stars to fall asleep, and Junior falls asleep almost immediately. The Fraggles grab the cup that Junior dropped and head to the Gorg's garden to get back their moon. On the way, Gobo recounts Uncle Traveling Matt's card from last week, where he encountered rainbow eggs.
Ooh.
They reach the garden and find Junior sleeping. They search his body, but can't find the moon anywhere. It must be dead. Wembley takes the lid off the barrel to look inside and sees the reflection of the moon again. He's like, oh my gosh, The moon's back in this barrel. We got to get moving. They take it back to Fraggle Rock. They open the barrel, but the moon is gone. They look in the Fraggle pond, and the moon is back in the Fraggle pond. Ooh. The ceremony of the moon is over, and all is right in Fraggle Rock.
Oh.
So, Jarman, what did you think of this week's episode of Fraggle Rock?
So I thought it was cute, but at the same time, I thought it made the Fraggles... That was silly to say for a kid's show because there's not a lot of consistency necessarily in kids shows, but it made them seem even more naive than they should be. Because like these are beings that know how to make their own clothes. They can create contraptions. They put on stage plays, but they don't know what a reflection is. Like that kind of like, it just kind of took me out of it a little bit because I was like, they're smarter than this. Like they know what a reflection is. Like that's silly.
Yeah, but have you ever seen a Fraggle mirror?
I guess not.
That's right.
Not yet.
They all have face blindness. That's the key.
But on top of that, like you said, there was only 2 songs, and they were both kind of slow. And so a lot of sleeping and a lot of lullabies, and so I was just kind of like, so it kind of dragged for me a little bit. So even though the story was cute, it definitely wasn't one of my favorite episodes. But I will say I did enjoy the oldest Fraggle beating up his attendant over and over again. That was a lot of fun.
Yes, that was the arguably the best part of the episode. I've got to agree. This episode had some sort of major pacing issues.
It's just slow the whole time. Yeah.
It was slow the whole time. The songs didn't really help. The whole thing where Junior's head was stuck, I was like, when are we moving past this? When are we going to the Gorge Garden? What is happening right now?
Yeah.
This doesn't need to be here. And also I agree the writing felt, I don't know, more childish than usual this week. That naivety you were talking about.
Yeah.
You could feel it sort of in the way the dialogue happened even in this episode.
And they're used to the Gorgs talking, or Junior Gorg being dumb like that, but not the Fraggles. Like the Fraggles are ingenuitive,
right?
They're smart, like, I don't know. They have their own traditions, but they're not like dopes.
Yeah, no, I agree. This one, I mean, might be kind of bottom of the barrel for Fraggle Rock for me. It just kind of it's not a bad episode, but it just has suffered from the most issues.
Yeah. Like, yeah, it wasn't terrible or anything, but like, I think if you put a modern day kid in front of this episode, they would fall asleep. Like that's like you succeeded in making them fall asleep.
And the doc plot did not help. Like it did not. Sometimes the doc plot kind of like bails out the episode.
That's true.
That was not the case here.
No,
not the case.
I agree.
So we might have found like maybe a bottom 3 here.
Yeah, at least for this season.
It's possible.
Yeah. And it wasn't terrible, but it was not that great. Yeah.
But what the hell were those silly creatures up to this week? Uncle Traveling Matt finds his way to Rainbow Farms, which he thinks is where he's found a rainbow egg. Well, it's actually a chicken's egg. And after waking up from a nap, Matt finds that it has hatched and a full-grown rainbow has sprouted in the sky. They grow up so fast. Really what he's looking at is a chicken's egg. And so let's talk about chickens. Well, their ancestors were sort of quail-like ground-dwelling birds that when the extinction event happened that killed the dinosaurs and the flying birds, chickens' ancestors down on the ground survived and thrived.
Oh.
So chickens' ancestors lived out the Ice Age, basically, like the major catastrophic event. They were called red jungle fowl from Southeast Asia, and that's their closest current relatives. These things still exist. Red jungle fowl have an amazing ability to dramatically increase their reproduction when lots of food is available. So apparently in Southeast Asia, there's these like bamboo growing cycles that go 20 to 30 years. And all of a sudden, there's all of these seeds all at one time. And so these red jungle fowl evolved so that when this cycle happens, they would just eat like crazy and pump out a crap ton of kids. Well, early humans figured this out, that if they fed them continuously, they would there was no downtime for them crapping out kids. Either it's chickens or eggs. And so that's why they were domesticated. And unlike some other animals where there are multiple domestication events kind of tracked, there was just one mass domestication event, and they have changed very little since that time.
That makes so much sense. Like it actually connects the dots very well.
Yeah. This happened about 8,000 years ago. This one major domestication event happened. And today, around the world, 50 billion, with a B, billion chickens are raised yearly for meat and eggs.
Wow. It's got to be the most common form of protein around the world. That and beef.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I'd guess.
Because cows
Goats probably up there too, just not here.
Well, cows are revered in India, and there's like 1 billion people in India, so they only eat chicken over there. So
yeah, but like half of them are vegetarian. So,
that's true. Yeah, that's true as well.
Well, that's what those silly creatures are up to. Chickens. Jarman, what did you think was the best Muppeteering moment this week?
I happened to accidentally peek at what yours was, and I was like, crap, that's actually mine too, which is the miniature work with the Gorgs. You had them crawling all over the Gorg while he's sleeping, going in his pockets and all this stuff, and, you know, being launched over to his feet. And like, they looked just like they were the regular, almost like they were the regular Fraggles, but they were the miniature versions. And I was like, it was just done so well. So yeah, that's probably my favorite.
I'm glad you cheated off me because it's the right answer. Yeah, the miniature work doesn't always sell, but this week I thought it was really successful.
Yeah, another higher point of the episode.
But, Jarman, what happened in this week's episode of Star Trek The Next Generation?
Boy, howdy, we have the Dauphin. So the Enterprise is sent to pick up what kind of be the daughter of like a Romeo and Juliet situation on a distant planet called Daled 4. Her name is Celia. So basically 2 warring faction leaders had a daughter named Celia, but so she was exiled to a nearby planet to be safe and to grow with her governess, Anya. And her parents have now died, now that she's like a teenager. So now it's time for her to go back to rule over both factions if possible and like bring peace. But once she's on board the Enterprise, though, she meets Wesley Crusher and immediately gets the hots for him. And this causes her governess to be extremely protective of her. Wesley is also smitten with her as well, but he's never really talked to girls before. So he goes to get advice from the other male crew members. And Worf says that with Klingons, there's lots of grunting and growling in courtship, followed by the female throwing heavy objects while the male reads love poetry. But Wesley doesn't think that'll work for him. Geordi says he's too busy, and he gets pissed because Wesley's ignoring his duties in the engineering section. So he's like, go get help with this from somewhere else and don't come back until you figured it out. So he goes to Riker, and Riker slams some serious game on Guinan for Wesley to learn, but Wesley's still not getting it, which I'll talk more about that scene later. So Wesley then takes Celia out for some chocolate mousse and just tries to be himself. And go figure, that works. So they become closer, and she tells him that she never got to leave her exile planet, so he takes her on a date to the holodeck to see some other planets. And it's very romantic, very sweet, very cute teenage love. Meanwhile, the angry governess, Anya, she's taking a tour of the Enterprise, and she goes to engineering and she complains about their shoddy warp drive. Then she's in sick bay and she sees a sick person and says that person must be incinerated immediately, even if there's just a small chance they could make Celia sick. And when she tries to insist they kill the patient, Worf tries to restrain her and she turns into a monster and kicks Worf's ass. So Picard shows up to calm things down, and Dr. Pulaski says that Anya is actually a elastomorph shapeshifter, and she's a danger to the crew. So Picard confines her to her quarters and says that Worf will make sure that Celia is safe the whole time she's on this trip. Picard sees that Anya doesn't like it when Wesley is around Celia, so Picard orders Wesley to stay away from her. But Celia sneaks out in the middle of the night and has a rendezvous with Wesley, and they share a kiss. Ooh. Just then, Anya bursts in Kool-Aid Man style as a monster to kill Wesley, and Celia also transforms into a monster to protect him. But that surprises the hell out of Wesley because he just kissed this giant monster. So security arrives, and they both morph back into their human forms, and Celia apologizes to Wesley for not telling him about her abilities. But Wesley is too immature to get over it, and he's pissed and weirded out by it. So they finally arrive at her home planet, but before Celia leaves, Anya tells her that she's not going with her and that her job here is done. So they have a heartfelt goodbye. But before Celia can beam away, Wesley comes to his senses, and he comes to say goodbye with some more chocolate mousse, and they share a little nice moment. So then Celia transforms into her natural form, which is this big ball of energy, which is really beautiful. And Wesley thinks it's wonderful, and she's beamed down to her home planet. And that we have the Dauphin. So, Steve, what do you think of this episode?
All right. So some things I liked. I kind of liked the slower burn on this episode. We didn't start in the middle of some major issue or crisis.
That's
or
true.
a broken down spaceship that they have to go look at. Some good character moments surrounding Wesley getting advice. I do not think Wesley specifically character-wise was super successful this episode, but I liked the people around him.
Yes.
Like Worf and Riker and Geordi and Guinan. They all got good character moments because of Wesley, but I do not think Wesley specifically was very successful. It's that hard reminder that like Wesley's a kid. And these episodes, but the worst part of that is then you ask like, so why did they let him drive the ship? Like these episodes make you doubt that he should be there.
It's like having Data doing stuff because he's immature in other ways, but he's very proficient at other things. Like kind of the way I look at it.
So a good transformation reveal with Celia, like the multiple forms and her turning into a red beast person and then the light flashy thing at the end. There was a surprisingly nice moment between Anya and Celia at the end where Anya's like, I'm not going to go with you. You're on your own now. And Celia, who has basically shown nothing but disdain for Anya up to this point, is like, you did a good job. High five. It was kind of like nice in a weird way.
She's like, I know you've been hard on me on purpose because, you're my protector. I get it.
And I think this episode had some really great scoring and music. They used the lower stakes, so to speak, of this episode to really put some nice music in.
I didn't even notice. Let's go back and listen.
Yeah, I highly recommend. I noticed it because the episode was a little bit slower.
Yeah.
Some things I struggled with a bit. There was not enough plot to fill this out. I feel like this really needed the B plot. The main plot, there wasn't enough stuff.
Yeah.
And so they felt like these big kind of slow moments. Then mind you, they filled them with character stuff, but I think just a B plot. And I think my idea was like Geordi asked Data to come help because Wesley is distracted. And so we get like a Geordi, Data silliness subplot. It didn't need to be anything high stakes, but something had to fill the gaps here. And then Wesley, once again, this is saying him suddenly being seemingly so like kind of almost bigoted felt jarring. It felt really jarring. And they've done it with him a few times recently. And once again, it's that reminder that he's a kid, but then it just brings into doubt, like, why do they trust him with so much?
Yeah.
If he is still prone to this shit, how could you put him in charge of the things you put him in charge of?
Strangely, this will come up with our Play on Nerds episode we're recording later tonight as well. But like these late 80s, early 90s movies that are trying to be more woke and like trying to be more talking about bullying and things like that, they'll have a moment where they show like this, society, it's utopia and everyone's good to each other and no one's racist or bigoted. And then they'll still like sneak in a bigoted moment towards things they don't think about are bigot that we know are bigoted now, like towards like overweight people or small people. And it's like, you make all this effort to show that everyone's perfect now, but then you're still racist over here. It's like a Vulcan or something, it's like, that doesn't make any sense. But yeah, I got that feeling too.
Like that Randy Newman song, Short People.
Got no reason to live.
My wife just gave me the finger, just so you know.
My mom hates that song too. She's 4'11".
I know.
But yeah, I liked that it was a Wesley focused episode. We haven't had one in a while. They put too many in the beginning of the show, and then we haven't had one in a long time. I really like the guest actors. I looked them up. The young girl with Wesley, she basically quit acting after this, and she's now
this is like one of 4 credits she has or something.
Yeah, and she was a good actress. She's beautiful, but she's a psychologist now, full time. Like you search her name, her website pops up as a psychologist. The old woman protector is interesting. She was in Halloween 3 Season of the Witch as like a secretary somewhere, but she's also a bigger voice actress. She was. Yeah,
she's a ton of voice performance.
Yeah, Atropus and Hercules from Disney, Flotsam and Jetsam from Little Mermaid, which she got to bank on for all the sequels and video games.
Yeah, and 2 and like 5 video games. Yeah, that was exactly nuts.
And the teenage version of the Protector, who showed up for like 2 seconds, like to be her companion. I recognized her immediately. Like, where do I know her from? She's from Twin Peaks. She was really big in that show.
Anna recognized her immediately.
Yeah, I love Twin Peaks.
Immediately from Twin Peaks.
But she's gorgeous too. But yeah, she was in Twin Peaks. But I was gonna say, this has one of my favorite scenes in Next Gen though, is when Riker is showing Wesley how to talk to women. So he's demonstrating with Guinan, and they have this like 1940s style quick and flirty dialogue back and forth, which I love. It's so hilarious. And like Guinan's playing along, but suddenly like gets into it because she's like, damn, this is good. Like, and Wesley interrupts and she's like, shut up, kid. And like, she wants to get more of it. And I love that scene so much. And the mating rituals from Klingon are amazing. But I'm surprised you didn't mention those costumes when they turn into monsters were god awful.
So the big ones weren't the worst, like the full size ones. When she turned into like a little person,
I vaguely remember that
thing. That costume was maybe one of the worst in all of Star Trek, and I'm including the original series in this.
Yeah, these were like 1950s, like Lost in Space bad costumes, like early Doctor Who bad costumes.
We have seen worse, but not since the original series.
Yeah, it was pretty rough for some reason.
Yeah.
So I don't know, a pretty middle of the road episode for me, but not bad. It was kind of fun in parts. What do you think?
I don't know. This one really suffered from, I think, some pacing issues. It needed a sort of B plot to like really push it along a little bit.
Yeah, there wasn't enough going on.
And we've had so many strong episodes this season, especially in comparison to season one, that this one might end up sort of towards the bottom for me.
Yeah, I can see it.
But only because we've had so many strong episodes this season specifically.
Also, this episode was missing a lot of Data, and the last episode was missing Boober entirely. We forgot to mention that.
Yeah.
No Boober. All right, so some Trek facts here. Not many for this episode, strangely. It's Will Wheaton's first on-screen kiss. That's something.
Ooh.
Fans have somewhat derisively referred to this episode as Wesley reaches puberty. And
not wrong.
I couldn't really find other interesting trivia about this episode. Here's some history. Le Dauphin, or the Dauphin, was the heraldic symbol of the French kings. From 1350 until 1791, the title designated the heir apparent to the throne. So it's basically like a prince, is what that basically is. But it could be a female as well, but usually was a male. And many royal claimants in exile gave themselves that title during the 19th and 20th centuries. And the title was officially revived in 1824, but before being discarded once again in 1830, and it hasn't really been used since. But yeah, there's your Dauphin history lesson there. Dauphin. But Steve, you got some Trek connections for us?
Yeah. Well, Anya was played by actress Patty Warner. You mentioned she played Atropos in Disney's Hercules. Also in Disney Hercules was Jim Cummings, who played the voice of who then went on to play the voice of the full-scale Muppet called Scales the Dragon.
Oh.
In Disney's failed The Little Mermaid live-action series.
Wow.
All of the puppets for which were done by the Jim Henson Company.
Wow. And he's mostly known for being the voice of Winnie the Pooh. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, and he's 400 IMDb credits. Just something absolutely nuts. All right. So then Celia was played by Jamie Hubbard. She was on one episode of the show Ellen. Also on this show is an actor named Patrick Bristow, who, if you look up, you'd recognize. He's a comedic character actor, been around a long time. He was a member of the Groundlings, and he was the person brought in to train the Muppet performers for 9 months in improv in preparation for their launch of their show, Puppet Up.
Puppet Up?
Which he actually... Yeah, in LA, you can go and watch like the Jim Henson Company performers do improv.
Oh, I didn't know it existed. Okay, wow.
Yeah, Puppet Up. Look it up on YouTube. There's some great videos of it. And he even emceed for them for a hot minute.
Oh, wow. What a
Patrick
connection.
Barstow. Bam, just like that. Well, it makes sense because they are the same episode.
Absolutely. I mean, both feature the moon in an important way. Obviously, the whole importance of the moon in the Fraggle Rock episode is the whole thing is about the moon. And also the planet Daled 4 in the Star Trek episode is title locked they mentioned. So that means that one side of the planet is always lit by the moon and one side's always lit by sunlight. So the moon is very important to their society. Yeah.
Bam. Both feature things that aren't what they seem. The moon seemingly being taken from the sky and put into a bucket and then back into a bucket and then back in the well. And Celia and her protector transforming into different forms, not what they seem.
Very true. Both feature a main character seeking the help of their friends to achieve their goal. Kind of a tenuous one here. Gobo gets Wembley and Moki to help him capture the moon. And Wesley asks Geordi, Worf, and Riker how to talk to women.
Yeah. Both feature unconventional protection of child figures. Pa Gorg calling his son a dummy, but ultimately helping him sleep by telling him to count the stars. And Anya taking care of Celia through various questionable means and threats.
Yes, and being very intimidating. Oh, that's true. But what the hell is that noise? Oh, God.
Transporter malfunction. Transporter malfunction.
All right, it's time of the show where we transport one of the characters from one episode to the other and vice versa. So what you got for us, Steve?
Trek to Rock, I'm going to bring over both Anya and Celia and replace Pa and Junior Gorg, respectively. Celia unable to sleep out of the excitement of returning home, and Anya turning into a beast and telling her she's a fool and telling her to count stars and stay here.
It would work. It would totally work.
Yep.
Trek to Rock, I'm going to have Wesley take the place of Gobo because he's so smart. He'd actually find a way to capture the moon and put it in that pool.
It would be in that bucket.
It would be actually in the bucket.
Rock to Trek, I'm going to bring over the world's oldest Fraggle to replace any of the people giving Wesley girl advice. I would just love the world's oldest Fraggle with his crony that he hits repeatedly to be the ones giving Wesley advice about picking up chicks.
Sing her a song. Make her a statue. Rock to Trek, I'd bring over Junior Gorg to replace Anya. He'd be trying to protect Celia, but being a total dumbass about it, but would still kick everyone's ass. And I'm just picturing a scene where Worf gets his ass kicked by Junior Gorg, and Worf saying, "You have no honor." Just work perfectly. So that brings us to the end of episode 138 of the MuppeTrek Podcast.
Join us next time for Fraggle Rock episode Marooned.
And Star Trek The Next Generation episode Contagion.
So from the lovers, the dreamers, and us.
Live long and prosper, everyone.
Thanks for listening to the MuppeTrek Podcast. Be sure to follow us on social media on Facebook and Twitter.
Subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, or your favorite podcast platform.
This podcast has been brought to you by A Play on Nerds.